Good morning to one and all. So, uh, am I audible and is the screen visible? So, we can start in a couple of minutes. It's already 8. So, we can just wait for another 2 minutes and then start if some more people are joining in. Okay, so I think we can start today's session and people can join in. So, good morning. I welcome one and all for today's webinar. So, today we will be discussing or dealing with Ashta Ahara Vidhi, that is the 8 factors mentioned in Ayurveda that determine the utility or the this of food. Utility of food would be how the productivity of food is, or what are the benefits of it, what determines the utility of the food that we consume. So in the previous class we had seen about matra, the importance of quantity that we eat, and what are the main causes for diseases, which is ultimately the formation of amam or the toxin that forms, and all of it is because of wrong food habits. So we discussed about viruddha aharam, then we discussed about adhyashanam, that is eating before your previous meal is digested, and various causes that lead to ajirnam or improper digestion, and when not sorted out correctly will ultimately lead to slow formation of amam in the body, which is the main reason for causing diseases. So today we will see what are the factors that determine the utility of food that we consume. So the factors are prakriti, that is the nature of food. Then karana, that is the processing that the food goes through. Then rashi is nothing but matra or quantity. Samyogam is combinations of food. Then desha is habitat. Kala, time. Then upayoga samstha is the rules that one should follow while eating. And upayogya refers to the person consuming the food, what all he should keep in mind while consuming food. So first is prakriti. So like we discussed in the first class, that we as humans also have a prakriti or constitution. The food that we eat also has a prakriti, that is nothing but a nature or guna, a quality to itself, which should be kept in mind. And I think we have discussed in detail about the different qualities of different foods that we mostly consume. So for example, some of the examples we can recollect are, so masha, that is urad dal, is heavy to digest. It is a prakriti or guna of urad dal. And mudga, or the green gram or the yellow dal, is light to digest. Similarly, meat of deer or meat of jangala, that is arid animals, meat of goat, all of these are laghu, like we have seen. And meat of pork, meat of beef, and anupamamsam, that is predominantly sea food are guru to digest. Then coming to dadi and takram, that is curd. So when you consume curd as such, it is guru or heavy to digest by its nature. But when properly churned and the butter is removed from the curd and we make a proper takram out of it, the same thing becomes lagu or light to digest. So that is the guna or nature of that that particular food. Similarly, in terms of potency or virium, that is what it does to the body. Like we know, milk is sheetam or cooling to the body, whereas curd is ushnam. So though they all come under dairy products, and it's commonly said we can replace milk with curd or milk with buttermilk, or we can substitute any of the dairy products with anything, the virya or the properties are very much different when it comes to understanding in terms of Ayurveda. So whereas milk is cooling to the body, dadi is ushnam or heating to the body. Similarly, in Rasabhediyam we had discussed tamarind, lemon, citrus fruits, tomato, all of these are amlam or sour, but they are ushnam to the body. The only exceptions that fall in that are gooseberry or amla and pomegranate. So though they are predominantly the sour, they are shita-viryam or not heating to the body. And while the former increases pittam, that is excess consumption of excessive sour food involving lemon, tamarind, citrus fruits, etc., increase pittam, amalaki, pomegranate do not do it. They are in fact, because they are shita-viryam, they reduce pittam. Then the last example, we know fish is ushnam and milk is sheetam. So this comes under a viruddha aharam. So what more importantly, what we should not take should be remembered more than what we should take. So ushnam and sheetam, so two different foods having opposite virium or potency, should not be consumed together because they act as viruddham or incompatible food to the body. Then that is those are a few examples for prakriti. Then karana is processing of food. So what are the various processes that we put our food through have an impact on it and change the properties of the food. So some of them are roasting, dilution, heating, churning, flavoring, preservation. So these are some of the modernly used techniques that are mentioned, which we can correlate to karana or implement in processing of food. So for example, when we roast the rice to make the kanji or whatever powder, so roasting of rice, dry roasting anything, makes it laghu or easy to digest. Then rice that is cooked and strained again becomes laghu to digest. Then the simple process of manthana or churning. So when you convert curd into buttermilk by the process of churning and physically remove the butter out, curd is guru, buttermilk is laghu, where curd when consumed regularly can cause shotam or swelling or water retention in the body. The same thing when the butter is removed out and made into takram, takram becomes laghu to the body and very, very good for the stomach. So the complete property from dadi to takram changes with this transformation or this karana or this tool of processing called manthana or churning. Similarly, by boiling. So when we boil our water with certain herbs or certain drugs and infuse the qualities of those drugs in water, it benefits us. So for example, in Ritucharya, we would have seen in Grishma Ritu, we would have said we should boil our water with Shita Viryam or cooling herbs like camphor or even vetiver, that is the khaskhas grass that we get, ushiram, that is known in Sanskrit. So usually we boil that in water, keep it in an earthen pot and use that for drinking because it is cooling to the body. So this comes in the ahara part of it. In medicinal point of it, I have just mentioned two examples. So gokshura is a drug. It is botanically identified as Pteris tribulus. So I think in Tamil, if you know, it is called nerinji mul. It's a small herb with thorns on it. So it's a very, very good medicine for any kind of urinary complaint. So when patients come to us, we ask them to have gokshura infused water. So the whole process of boiling and infusing the property of the drug will help gain its benefits. So similarly, using of panchavalkalam or using of simple triphala churnam. So if you have gone for various complaints, you would have had triphala boiled in water either for gargling or washing of wounds. So boiling and infusing the properties of these herbs also have a effect on the body. Then asavarishtam, so those are the fermented medicines that are available. So basically the medicines are made and a fermenting natural herbal fermenting agent is added, and the medicine is preserved for 15 days. So only after that 15 days of fermenting and preservation is done, it gains the medicinal properties that it is used for. Then also, I think the batter that we use commonly to make, we have to allow it to ferment. Only after the batter that we make ferments, it is actually edible, or it can be ready to, it can be used. So just by grinding and mixing it, it's not. The process of waiting for it to ferment is also a karana. Then bhajanam is different vessels that we store our food in, also has an impact. Some of the other common modern examples which we can correlate to are toya sanikarsha, that is using of water. That is example, soaking of rice and dal to make batter. So soaking it for a longer time makes it easier to cook, or it gets cooked easily. Then soaking for sprouting grains. So when we soak our grains or pulses for it to sprout, so that is one form of process to it. Then again, when we sprout and eat it raw, it becomes heavy to digest. Then agni sannikarsham is exposing any food to agni or fire. So again, cooking your food, roasting your food, all of that helps in changing the quality of food. So when it's exposed to agni, or when you process it on fire, it slightly makes the digestion of the food easy rather than eating it raw. Then some common examples I've mentioned: converting milk to paneer. Then shaucha, so cleaning. So it's very common that we clean our vegetables, we clean our greens, we clean all of it well. So the whole process of that is also an example. Then manthana, that is churning of curd to remove butter and to make buttermilk. Then vasana, or adding fragrance to the food, so which is very very specific to our kind of food, where we use a lot of spices, or we use hingu, that is asafoetida, we use curry leaves, we use dhania. So all our spices that we predominantly use are not only beneficial for health, but also give a good fragrance or flavor to the food that we eat. Then bharjanam is the process of frying. So when we dry roast our seeds to make any kind of powder, or roasting of coffee seeds, so all of this is also a process. So that is karana. Then samyoga. So as you know, the word samyoga is combination. So in this context, we can take combination of two or more substances that we eat together. So what more importantly we should remember is what are the combinations we should not take, rather than if there are any specific combinations to be taken. So there is no specific combinations of food that are mentioned which have to be taken. What have to be avoided and what act as viruddham are what which have to be remembered in samyogam. So the combination of them manifests certain attributes that individual substances cannot. So for example, milk is beneficial, fruit is beneficial. So when you take them separately, they have their good benefits. But when we combine them to have a milkshake, or if we mix curd and fruit, or if we mix or any viruddham, that is not. So today, I think because of lack of time, everybody mixes everything, puts it in a mixie. So the whole concept of milkshake, smoothie is mixing of all things together. We do not think whether the two that we mix have any effect if had together or not, because nothing like that is actually considered in the modern nutrition system. But what benefits they impart individually may not be necessarily got when they are combined and had together, which has to be remembered. So for example, I think last week we discussed a variety of viruddham, that is fish and milk, fruits and milk, chicken and curd, honey and ghee in equal quantity, or anything that is salty and sour with milk. So all of these are combinations that we should avoid. Then coming to rashi, that is nothing but matra or quantity of food. So this also we have discussed in great detail last class. That is the matra or quantity of food that we take should be depending on the gurutvam, that is the heaviness, or lagutvam, lightness of the food. So if we are consuming a predominantly a serving of guru aharam, it should be consumed up to 1/3 or half of our satisfaction or tripti. And if we are taking lagu aharam, it can be taken slightly more than our satisfaction. So then The quantity of food is again divided into sarvagraha and parigraha. Sarvagraha is the entire food that we take in our plate. The entire quantity is what is called sarvagraha. Parigraha is the individual food items or the ingredients that go into making the food can be considered. So when we go through the individual items in our plate, we will know how much of it is guru, how much of it is lagu. And when we consider an entire meal that we take, we should always remember food should be taken up to half of our tripti or satisfaction. So the quantity of food is very, very important. It acts as nectar. So excess of food is equal to poison, or it is the main source of problem in our body. So the matra or quantity that we take should be very mindfully taken. Then coming to desha. So this also we have discussed ample times in various classes. So the place that the plant or the pulses or the vegetation or the animals that we consume grow is very, very important to influence its guna. So the desha, that is one point to consider in desha, that is the place where it grows. The second desha is also refers to acclimatization of the region we live in and eat what suits that particular region. So what desha we are living in and what suits that particular place should be consumed by us is very, very important. So currently what common mistakes we see is grains that are not grown here, vegetables that are not grown here. So all these vegetables, grains that are imported or actually cultivated in foreign countries, when they are exported here, people think it is more nutritious than what is grown here and tend to consume it. Or a lot of people try to imitate or consume the kind of diet and the lifestyle what people in, say, America or Europe consider. So one thing we should consider is the desha. So their climate, their ethnicity, their acclimatization to the country is very different compared to our ethnicity and our kind of digestion. So a lot of people these days eat quinoa. So quinoa is a very imported millet. So people do not know that there are millets grown in India also, which can be slightly more suitable for us. So the concept of having oats is something that's brought down from there. The concept of having, you know, um, what are the some common other vegetables that are not native to India. So a lot of people have baby corn, broccoli. So occasional consumption of it would be okay, but keeping in mind the desha we are in and what grows here, what is suitable for our digestion should be predominantly had. So in extreme cold climates in Europe or other countries where they have snowfall or extreme cold weather, so their diet would predominantly be some more of red meat. They might have some alcohol with it. They have some cooked vegetables with it. Some of them even have raw vegetables. So because of the agni and the weather, such kind of heavy food digests well there and goes well with them. So the same thing, unmindfully, if we are going to adopt here, thinking that the same thing is healthy and have it in a tropical climate here, it may not necessarily suit us or give the benefits that they claim it gives. So the desha or acclimatization of the region we live in is very important, and eating what suits us in the weather or temperature or the habitat we live in is very, very important. So coming to Jangala Desha, so if the plants, the animals, the vegetation that grows here are light and easy to digest, and because the animals here are constantly grazing, moving, they become laghu. I think this we have already discussed. Similarly, if we are living in a Jangala Desha, predominantly a hot, humid kind of a climate, dry climate, our food should include unctuous, that is snigdam, lagu, and predominantly foods that are liquid or easy to digest kind of food. So that we have seen in the last class. Similarly, anupadesham, that is the coastal or marshy areas. The meat, the plants, the vegetation that grow here are predominantly have a tendency to V-shaped kapham, and they are heavy to digest and nourishing. So accordingly, we should take our food. So this can be consumed in very cold climates or occasional consumption, because this kind of meat and vegetation is heavy. So one should keep in mind this concept, both the desha where the vegetation grows or happens and the place that we stay in. Then apart from these two deshas or locations, not only external desha should be considered, but also the deha desha. That is, our physical body is also considered as a desha according to Ayurveda. So there are two kinds of desha, bhumi desha and deha desha. So bhumi is what the land that we discuss now. Deha desha is the condition and health of a person. So here we are predominantly dealing with overall healthy people can follow this, but in particular if our deha is suffering from kind of a disorder, some vyadi, some particular disease, then there will be a certain avoid list of certain foods that may aggravate our disease, which we should accordingly avoid. So that relates more to when you become a patient and meet a physician, then that is where Ayurveda follows a patyam, asks you to avoid certain lists, certain items. So this is about desha. So then it can be then coming to kala. Kala can be divided as Nityaga Kala and Avastika Kala. So Kala, as we know, is time. So Nityaga Kala is more important to us, which we have discussed in detail. So that can include the time of consumption of food, your month and season. So then the Ritucharya that we have discussed can be implemented as a part of this Kala, in which season, how we have to slightly change our eating habits, how in winters and extreme winters, our Agni Bala is very good. So slightly Guru, Snigdam, heavy to digest food can be taken. Coming to summers and rainy season, when our Agni Bala depletes and our Balam is less, how we acclimatize our food accordingly. Then time or Kala to take food is very simple. Eat when you're hungry, eat after your previous meal is digested. So we have discussed all this. After evacuation of our malam mutram, we should have our food. So ideally earlier there were 2 meals a day, but now we have made it 3, which is okay. But then again, avoiding frequent meals, ensuring that our previous meal is digested before we are constantly eating something, all this should be remembered in Nityaga Kala. Then Avastika Kala is stage of disease. So this refers more to a physician. So when a patient comes to us, understanding what stage the disease is and accordingly giving them the diet, or accordingly telling them what to eat, what not to eat, or depending on the stage of the disease, giving the appropriate medicine and treatment comes under Avastika Kala. Avastha is stage. So it predominantly is it includes a disease condition. So that is in Kala. Then coming to Upayoga-samstha, that is the rules one has to follow while consuming food. So what are some of the rules or some of the factors one has to keep in mind while consuming food? So one is, we'll go through this in detail, but the 11 factors are Ushnam Ashniyat, Snigdam Ashniyat, Matravat, Jeernam Ashniyat, Nati Drutam, Nati Vilambitam Ashniyat, Ishtadesha, Ishta Sarvopakaranam, Ajalpam, Ahasanam, Anya Manasova, Atmanam, Abhisamiksham. So we'll go through one by one what these mean. So first thing is Ushnam Ashniyat. That is, the food that we consume should always be slightly warm. So predominantly warm or slightly hot. What are the benefits of consuming warm food? So one is it increases or aids the Agni to digest better. Then the food gets digested properly. Quickly is not very fast. It would mean the food that we consume is digested appropriately in the right amount of time, because the Agni functions well. And when we consume warm food, Vayu moves downwards, which is what we ideally want in our body to happen. Vada should always move in the downward direction. Then when we consume warm food, it softens and moistens the food that we consume, and the ushnatvam, or the warmth of the food, keeps a check on too much increase of kapham. So even if there's a tendency to slightly increase kapham, there is a breakdown of it because of the ushna gunam of the food balancing the food in it. So which is why in our earlier days also always people say, come and eat the food when it is warm, don't wait since it's cold. So these days, at least as much as possible, we have to consume our food when it is hot or warm, or cooked soon after it is made. So that is the benefits of Ushnam Ashniyat. Then Snigdham Ashniyat is food that is consumed should always have some unctuousness to it, or some Snigdha Guna, some amount of oil, ghee, some fat, some butter. All of it should be there in some minimum quantity. Too much of avoiding of this is not beneficial. So what happens when it is Snigdham or unctuous? Then again, it also helps in moistening, softening the food. Breaking down of the food is easier. And in small quantities, when fats or unctuous products are used, it increases the Agni. So just like how when we're doing a homam or something, when ghee is added slowly to the fire, the Agni slowly over a period goes on building. Similarly, when Snigdha Gunam, predominantly ghee is used in our diet, it is very, very good for the good functioning of Agni, which is why always some amount of ghee is added to our food when we eat. And when we definitely have unctuous food, it prevents the increase of Vata. So having some fat amount in our food helps to keep a check on increase of Vayu. Then it helps in nourishing the body, and unctuousness also gives us strength and complexion, because we know Snigdha Gunam is very nourishing, and it helps in the proper functioning of the senses. So it does not vitiate Vata, and it helps in proper functioning of the body. Then Matravat Ashniyat. So I think this we have discussed. Food should always be consumed in the right quantity. And we have discussed about the quantity of food, etc. in the previous class. So what are the benefits when we consume food in the right quantity is, it aids in proper digestion of the food. So what we consume digests well. Food digests without any difficulty. So we're able to digest our food without any discomfort. And when we have our breakfast by morning, ideally proper matra, by lunchtime we are naturally hungry. So it does not give us any discomfort or uneasiness. Mainly it does not vitiate or aggravate the doshas. It brings about normal functioning of doshas. And when food is consumed in the right quantity, one does not fall sick or does not tend to have formation of amam or ajirnam. So most of all, it helps to maintain health and increase the lifespan, because your chances of getting a vyadi or your agni getting hampered becomes very, very less. Then Jirnam Ashniyat. Food should be consumed keeping the Jirnam or the digestion of our body in mind. So when food not consumed keeping these Jirna Lakshanas in mind, it again causes Ajirnam, hampers the Agni, causes various problems. So last class we have discussed about Ajirnam, what are the different causes, what happens when we consume food in excess. So we get either Alasakam or Visuchikam. So all this we have discussed just by not following proper consumption of food in the right quantity and assessing our Jirna Lakshanas. So, what are some of the signs that show that food is digested properly or our Jirnam is good? Is one is our Agni will digest the food well. So that is, Agni is good should be understood as we feel hungry at the appropriate time. Then there is proper hunger. So that, like I said, if we consume some food in the morning, it is digested well naturally by afternoon, and by lunchtime we are naturally hungry. Similarly, night when we have food and sleep, next day morning naturally we feel hungry. Then the belching should be clear. So some people, even after consuming food at night, while getting up in the morning and they have belching, they still get the taste of the food that is had previous night. So which clearly means that the Jirnam is not proper. So ideally, within 2-3 hours, or depends on what we eat, clear belching is a sign of good Jirnam, and downward movement of Vayu, proper excretion of Malam, all of these are signs that our Jirnam is good in the body. Then Nati Drutam Ashniyat. So food should not be consumed too fast. So this is, I think, very common. One, for the physical reason that it may choke us, because consuming it very fast may accidentally enter into our windpipe and cause choking or coughing. Then when consumed too fast, it's very obvious that we do not chew our food well. We do not take time to process it and masticate it and push it inside. So it does not get digested well. So when food is gone as a whole, what happens? It takes longer time to digest and ultimately delays your next hunger time. Then the goodness of the food or the taste is not felt. And while eating too fast, sometimes a lot of wind may enter into our food pipe as well, which can again further aggravate vata. So I think it's a very common mistake today, due to lack of time, due to our very busy lifestyle. We hardly spend time to sit down and eat. So people just gulp food in 2 minutes, 5 minutes, or this is why the concept of mixing everything and drinking it like a juice or a smoothie, I think, came into existence, where you just blend everything and have it together. So importance should be given to eating it at the right time, chewing it well, and then sending it inside our stomach. So at the same time, nati vilambitam, that is, food should not be consumed very slowly also. So some people may sit in front of the television or have a book in hand or keep their phone, and they may consume a meal for more than half an hour, 1 hour, or they may not even know how long they're taking to eat. That is also not advisable, because one, you never feel satisfied because you take so long to eat. There is never a satisfaction, and there might be a tendency that we tend to have slightly more food in this case. Then once again, if you're going to eat for so long, the food that we eat becomes cold, so it's not going to remain warm, and once it becomes cold and we eat that cold food, it becomes heavy to digest in the body, and whatever benefits are got by ushnamashniyat, that is, the benefits of eating warm food, is lost when you eat very slowly. Then ishta desha ishta sarvopakaranam, that is, we have to have food in a place that is clean. So ishta desham is predominantly in a clean place, preferred to be a place where we can eat. And ishta sarvopakaranam is the utensils, the plates, or wherever we are sitting, and all the other factors surrounding that place where we eat should be comfortable and conducive to have food. So that is very, very important. So we can't be sitting on our bed, on our somewhere else, or sitting, just standing and eating. Some people just stand everywhere and eat. So we have to appropriately set up the place and also eat. Then ajalpam, so it is very obvious, one should not talk too much while eating. Again, it may choke, it may enter the windpipe, it may cause coughing, we may not chew the food well. So all this. Then ahasanam, so one should not be laughing, one should not be too distracted while having food. Anya manasova, so one should concentrate on the food he is eating. So this much importance was given back then to the food. So why we should concentrate, why they say that we should concentrate on the food, is then we can assess how much of our stomach is full, or what is our half tripti or 1/3 tripti. So when we are distracted, so either when we're watching TV, or when we're talking too much and eating, or we are not sitting and eating, so what happens is, when our concentration is elsewhere, the quantity of food, or what we are eating, how we are eating, is not focused on or concentrated on. So we should spend that amount of time to focus on food, assess how full we are, or how assess our stomach, and decide to eat our food accordingly. Atmanam abhisamiksham, so when we concentrate and eat our food, we introspect, we will be able to self assess how much one needs for the body, and consume mindfully. So this is about upayoga samstha. Then upayogya, so the 8 factors were about how we should consume the food. Then upayogya is what are the things the person consuming the food should keep in mind. So these were mentioned back then itself. So these are all given importance only now in various terms, but all this were mentioned thousands of years back, and this much of importance was given to the food that we take. So what are the rules, or what are the points person consuming food should keep in mind, is timely intake of food. So one should take food when he is hungry, take food when the previous meal is digested, take food after the malam or mutram, or whatever your evacuation of your urges have been done. Then person should have food he is accustomed to. So like I mentioned, we should simply not eat because someone in some other country, some other continent is eating something, it is claimed to have excessive nutritional value, so it should not just be bought here and consumed. So we should have food that our body, our digestion, and our ethnicity is capable of digesting. So I think all this concept of smoothie, this fruit yogurt, Greek yogurt, infused probiotic yogurt, everything that comes under processed or packaging which is not native to us. So keep in mind before buying or assessing. If someone just blindly says it is nutritious, assess whether whether it is needed for us, or whether our diet or our kind of food habits have the same amount of nutrition we can pack into it. Then food should be clean and pleasing. So it should be prepared well, it should be clean, done in a clean place. And predominantly food that we consume should be laghu, snigdham or ushnam. So it should, and so laghu should, it should be light to digest, have some amount of unctuousness, and predominantly warm. Then the food should have all 6 rasas, that is, it should have a combination of all the 6 rasas. With predominance of madhura rasa here will not mean having sweets or desserts or everything like that. You should remember that even rice, wheat, your basic pulses, your millets, all of this, the predominant food that you have is already madhura rasa, but they do not increase kapham, which is should be your predominant meal for well nourishing of the body. Then food should be predominantly in a liquid form, so avoid eating too thick or solid food. Then food should be cooked and served by clean cooks and with affection. So here, basically, even if we are cooking by ourselves, we should be clean and cook, in a good mind. So I think we have seen in the last class, even if we consume good food or healthy food, if it is not had with a good mind, or if it's had with a lot of anger, grief, or different kind of a mindset, it also leads to ajirna. So the person who's cooking, the person who's eating, all of them should have a pleasant mind while eating. Then food should be taken after washing hands and bathing, so that we feel clean. One, bathing is similarly, we have seen Agni. So Snanam always increases and improves our Agni and digests the food better. Then food should be taken after gratifying forefathers, gods, guests, children. Then pet birds or animals should be taken care of. So that should be fed before we consume food. Then one important point is one should eat only when he is hungry, which is very, very important and discussed in detail. Then eat in a secluded place, fully devoted to it. So like I said, these days we have a kitchen area, a dining area, so exclusively for eating it should be meant, and so that one is basically for its hygiene region, or secondly our mind should be concentrated on the food that we eat, and importance should be given to what we are sending inside. Then take food in the company of beloved ones. Then food contaminated with hair, grass, etc., or any kind of unclean food should be avoided. Food heated again is not good for health. So these days, once with the refrigerator coming into picture, 2 days, 3 days old food, we just reheat and eat. So I think unless it's very, very necessary, I think always fresh food should be consumed. Predominantly reheating or recooking the food is avoided. Then habit of taking food predominant of shaka, that is excess vegetables, excess green leafy vegetables, lot of pulses, food that is extremely hot and salty. So a diet predominant of this should be avoided. It should be more balanced. So all of this increase all the tridoshas. So what are the benefits if we follow all of this? So one can decide the patya and apatya, that is what is good, what is not good, how much we should eat. And I think last class we have gone through about shilana dravyas also, that is foods that are conducive for regular use. So by sitting and understanding what we are eating, we can actually eat mindfully, and it helps us decide what suits us and eat. And knowing these, person will not eat the wrong food. So simply whatever is put in our plate, we are just distracted or eating, should not be done. We should be mindful of what we are eating, how much we are eating. So by following all these Ashta Ahara Vidhis, or specifically the last 2 points, we will know what suits us, what doesn't suit us, how much to eat, when to stop, which is very, very important for correct eating. Then there is a reference for bhojana samayam, that is time to eat food. That is what is the right time to eat food, or what one should assess before eating food. So the reference is Ashtanga Hridayam Sutrasthanam. So Acharya says, when urine and feces are eliminated, then the stomach and mind both should feel clear, or the urge to want food should come from within the body. The belching or the burping gets clear. Mainly one should feel hungry. That urge of hunger at the right time should come. Vata moves downwards. Your digestive power is good, or you feel digestion is correct, and the body feels light. So some people do not have good digestion, as in even if you sleep for 8 hours and get up in the morning, there is no hunger till 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. There is one heaviness in the body. So that clearly means that the digestion is not right. So you should feel a laguta. That is, if you have a morning food, by lunch your body should feel light. You should feel that the food that you've had is digested and naturally feel hungry. Then the other rule that we have gone on speaking about is half the stomach should be filled with food, 1/4 should be filled with water. Then again, the best, when we went through Dravadravyaadi, we have seen that warm water had in between food is the most, gives us most benefit when we consume food with water, and the rest of the stomach should be left empty for the movement of vayu or the proper functioning of the doshas. So following this aids proper digestion of food in the body. So let us just go through a quick recap. So we saw about the 8 factors that we do while consuming food. So one is Prakriti. That is the nature of your food, assessing whether it is Guru, Laghu, or what is the potency or virya of the food. Is it cooling or is it light for the body? Is it cooling or heating to the body? Sorry. And whether it is light to digest, easy to digest, all of that comes under Prakriti of the food. Then coming to Karana, that is your processing, your various form of roasting, process of fermentation, process of flavoring, process of churning. So how it varies. So some of the Ayurvedic based examples would be lagutvam of rice when you roast it or cook and strain it, and manthana, process of churning, how the property of curd and buttermilk are so different. Then infusing herbs in water to gain its properties, fermentation of asava arishtam to infuse the medicinal values in it. Then the different processes in the modern, this thing is cleaning it with water, soaking it, churning, fragrant, garnishing the food, frying of food, all of this. Then samyoga, that is the combinations. More importantly, what should not be had together, and how when taken individually it may benefit you, but when you have it together it is not very healthy for the body. And then the quantity of food that we have discussed, keeping in mind Guru and Laghu Aharam, and the entire quantity of food that we take. Then the Desha. One is the Desha, that the vegetation or the plant or the food or the grains that cultivated are grown in. Second is the acclimatization of our body to the region we live in and suit what eat what suits that particular region. And the not only the Bhumi Desha, the Deha Desha, our physical body. So based on our Prakriti or based on our health condition, what suits us, what doesn't suit us also comes under this. Then coming to Kala, that is time, month and season is what we should keep in mind. Avastika Kala is more for a physician. So Nityaga Kala is keeping in mind the time we eat, whether we actually need food at that time and assessing it. Then following Ritucharya, accordingly adapting our food habits to that particular season. Then the Upayoga Samstha, the rules one should follow, that is eat warm food. Then Snigdha Mashnyat, have slight unctuousness, preferably ghee in the food. Matra, eat food in the right quantity. Condition or understand the jeernam of your body, or make sure the food is digested well and you have good jeernam before consuming the next food. Nati drutam, that is do not consume too fast. Nati vilambitam is do not consume very slow either. Then ishta desha ishta sarvopakaranam, having it in the appropriate place with appropriate vessels, or eating it in a good vessel or plate is very important. Ajalpam, no talking too much. Then do not laugh while eating. Then concentrate on the food that you are eating. Atma abhisamiksha, that is introspect how much one needs while consuming food. Then these are some of the common things that Ayurveda has mentioned, that is we should take food on time, eat when hungry, eat in a clean place. Then have food predominant of 6 rasas, predominantly liquid. Laghu, snigdham, ushnam should be predominant in our food. Then we should preferably take food after washing our hands and bathing to improve the Agni, and eat only when one is hungry. Eat in a secluded place devoted to it. Concentrate on the food that we eat and spend time to sit and eat food is very, very important. So then again, half the stomach should be filled with food, 1/4 with water, and leave the rest of the stomach empty. So common mistake we do today is eat full stomach, and on top of that send in the water to help it digest. Should not be done. So always eat half the stomach with food and 1/4 with water. So these are some of the concepts that are mentioned regarding the utility of food. So I think we have finished for today. So I thank you all for your patient hearing, and we can just move into the doubt session then. So drinking water after eating gooseberry tastes sweet. Is there an indication? No, so the anurasa of gooseberry is madhuram, so it does not become sweet. It is predominantly amla rasam or sour only. So there are few foods that even have a anurasa or a taste that comes later to it. So similarly, honey is also predominantly kashaya rasa and the anurasa is madhuram. So at the end of honey, pure honey, you can taste that it's slightly sweet. So there is a confusion with moong dal. I used to know that moong is small yellow, but on net they show that moong is green gram. So it is nothing but the full and half variety. Your green gram is the full variety, and when it is broken and made into a pulse, it is yellow dal. So both green gram and moong dal are the same. It is just full and half variety. You can use both. So that is with green gram. So then how do we assess about vata? So your flatulence moves downwards, you have proper motion, and there is no excess belching. So when vata does not move downward, you will have severe distension of abdomen, bloating. You can actually feel vata move inside your stomach. All that causes a lot of discomfort, which clearly has signs of ajirnam. So vayu moving downward is your flatulence. Vata moving downwards is a sign of proper flatulence and proper movement of malam downward. Then could you please give us a list of food which should not be taken together? For example, fruit and milk. I think last class was half the topic was only about foods that should not be taken together. So in case you have missed that, you can go through the previous class. Is belching or burping good for the body? That burping shows your tummy is well filled. So naturally, when we are consuming food, so maybe if we consume too fast, so burping is a natural phenomena which definitely should come. So when we are eating food, there is some amount of wind going in. So definitely there is belching that is coming. So some people may get belches in between food, that is okay. But when you consume food mentioned like this, the assessment should be the belching should be clear without the taste of food. So that is what is important in belching. So why last 2 weeks we have no access to presentation? So this we will have to ask the the admin or the organizers, because I think we have been sending. I will check and get back to you. I think the presentations are being uploaded within 2 days of this thing. Will anyway check. So I think beetle leaves I mentioned in Dinacharya class that it is Kashaya Katutikta Rasa, very Ushnam. So it is good for health, but predominantly not for everyday use. It is good and helps to aid digestion because it is Ushnam. Again, beetle leaf is Tikta Rasa, and the contents that we put inside it would be slightly ushnam, that is katu, which aids in digestion. But taking it every day, taking it in very hot season, or taking it if you have a bleeding disorder or a pitta vyadi, may not be very, very good. So occasionally you can have the beetle leaf. Ushna virya, shita virya should not be considered, but at the same time one talks about balancing these two. So there is, how should one understand it? So foods that have these two viryas should not be consumed together. Otherwise, I think the food that we predominate, so there are certain combinations of food that we should not have. Otherwise, I think the food that we predominantly have is slightly snigdam and sheetam only. The virya is the potency. So for example, rice, dal, vegetables, pulses, ghee that we take, all of this are predominantly snigdam, maduram, sheetam only. And maybe the takram that we have will be ushnam, but it is not viruddham. So which two foods that are viruddham is what we should keep in mind and take. So otherwise, I think the diet that we predominantly have does not have such a difference in potency. That is why we say maintain a low level of sour, salt, and spicy level. Excess of it will definitely cause increase of ushnatvam in the body. So is barley and barley water good for diabetic patient? So barley, I think we have discussed in Aharam as yava, which is good for diabetic patients, but do not take it as water. In general, diabetic patients can consume it as barley, either as a grain or a roti, preferably not as water, because yava is kafaharam, it is ruksham, so it is very, very good, like we have discussed. So 16-18 hour intermittent fasting, what meant by 2 meals in Ayurveda? Is fasting induced autophagy mentioned as an impact? So the second part of it, nothing like that is mentioned in Ayurveda. So earlier they would say 2 meals, but the time gap is not given. Then again, eating one when one is hungry, and predominantly I think in between they would have had some liquid or fluid in between, and again when the appetite was well, then preferably I think that 2 meal system of having something at 10, 11, 11:30, that is the brunch, and again having a 6:30 meal is what, if we look at time wise, we can consider in today's this thing. So I don't know if fasting induced autophagy mentioned as an impact, or that something like that is not mentioned. What if there is no belching? I don't think there is, it is not possible, because it's a natural urge for everybody to belch. So if not immediately, definitely after a few hours of eating, there is belching for everyone. If in case there is no, you can assess the other digestive jirna lakshanas and assess about the digestion of food. So benefits of sprouting. So sprouting, what it does is it makes it guru, which is why in Ayurveda the other benefits are not mentioned. It generally says when you sprout grains or sprout any kind of pulses, it becomes heavy. So preferably when we sprout, we end up eating it raw, so it becomes more heavy and guru to digest, which is why it is something that should not be taken very frequently. We always recommend you to cook and have everything to aid in better digestion of it. So as raw vegetable salads are not recommended, so I think pachadi is something we don't consume every day. In earlier days also, it was only as a part of some festival or a good day where we eat raw. Like I mentioned, occasionally, so once a week, if you are going to have 2-3 pieces of raw carrot or a few pieces of cucumber, it may not affect us. The disease or the problematic part comes when you have excess of it or only it. So one odd day, if you are going to consume a few pieces or a cup of raw vegetable, it will not bother you. So why does one get hiccups at odd time at night? So that is not a common thing. So hiccup is, so that is not relevant to here, but I don't know why. We'll have to see why that person gets up. We see lessons up to why panchakarma. No, there's no panchakarma covered in this, because the whole aim of it was to first impart basic concepts about food and living about Ayurveda. Panchakarma is more to do with physicians or doctors, or first understanding these concepts was thought to be very important, which is why there is no detail about panchakarma that is included in the basic session. So why is wheat chapati not recommended? It's not about recommendation. I think the different culture or the different habits of vegetation, they adapted different kind of food modalities. So wheat or goduma is heavy to digest. So preferably in the north is where they have more cold winters and cold climate, which is why maybe they came up with the concept of chapati, which is more guru or heavy to digest. Our winters are not predominantly that cold or chill. So preferably that's how by practice rice became more predominant for us and wheat became more common for them. is what I am assuming. So both varieties of gooseberry are suitable. That is okay. And should we eat or not eat while there is bloating? So bloating is not a normal condition. You definitely wait till your bloating reduces, or if there is a constant problem of bloating, it is not normal, you should definitely consult a physician and get your this thing. So I'm not answering medical related question. What do you suggest for gastritis is so as vitamin. So again, I told you Ayurveda does not look at vitamin A, B, C, D. The whole concept of that is not there. So sprouted grains, according to Ayurveda, are guru, heavy to digest, takes a longer while. So occasional consumption of it is okay, not regularly. I think even if you cook and take the same grain or the pulse, you might get the same nutritional quantity. So food consisting of Ushna and Shita, does it necessarily be Viruddham? No, not all of it is Viruddham, is what I told you. Extreme exceptions like milk and fish, taking of that is only Viruddham. And I think we have seen predominant examples also. So not everything that you take cold and hot is, so again, taking very cold water with your hot food is Viruddham. That will be Viruddham. Whereas I think taking your food normally, your general balanced meal, there is no difference in Ushnam Sheetam so much. Like I told you, predominantly all of them are Maduram, Snigdam, and slightly Ushnam. So only when you so where the virium or potency of food acts is when you take it in excess. So I think in Rasabedium, I told you, when we are going to consume excess of sour food like puli, tomato, lemon, excess of sour food is when the Ushna virium will actually act up. Or when we are taking extreme cold food, so always drinking cold water or drinking extremely chill drinks with hot food, that is when your virium will act. Otherwise, when you're taking a general balanced meal, if there is something, if you're adding a little bit of sambar or rasam with a little bit of tamarind, then again it is Ushnam or Ushnam and sour. But when you take it in moderate quantity, it will give you the benefits of Amla Rasam. So when it acts as Viruddham is when you take it in abnormally excessive quantity. So that should be understood. So how much of oil should be used in frying? So quantity is not mentioned as such. So I think you can just, if you're deep frying or having a deep fried item occasionally, a little of it is okay. So in Maharashtra, pachdi is added in everyday meal. Then I think you can preferably avoid eating raw foods every day. So that can be done. What minimum food you consume at night, then again assess your hunger. So some people are not too hungry at night, so they may just have a glass of milk, or they may just have a bowl of fruit. So then again it depends on your hunger. So if you always have a light dinner, if you're hungry, you can eat some amount of food. So there is nothing. So again, there is no quantification. I cannot specify that 2 chapatis will be correct for all, or just having a glass of milk is right for all. So if you're not too hungry, you can stop with something like that. Or if you're slightly more hungry, you can have a proper meal. So there is no harm. Then coming to, you mentioned that idli or dosa batter needs to ferment. Is it not right to make so I think freshly ground batter also, when you get it from the store or something, it is so without the process of fermentation, I'm not sure if you will get an idli or dosa made. Or if you make it without fermenting, that is also okay, because fermentation always leads to sourness of the food. So that's why we do not recommend idli dosa very frequently. So once in a while you can definitely have it, not a everyday food. Then what is the right, can ghee be made in iron vessel? So all that is okay. The only viruddham that we see with ghee is what is mentioned textually is it should not be stored or made in a bronze vessel. So right now I don't think we get such kind of vessels, so that is okay. Can you suggest a suitable local alternate for oats? So I think from what we understand, oats it has similar properties to millet, so you can replace that by a millet. Poha is predominantly rice, so oat has similar properties to barley or millet. It's a very drying kind of thing, you can use that. Pangs of hunger arise when we smell certain foods being cooked. So that is, I think, more to do with the mind and temptation. So until then, we don't feel hungry. So no, that you cannot be getting hungry with the smell of food only. Once in a while, it's okay, but otherwise, then you should. It is not okay to just get that. Your Jirna Lakshanas should be there properly. Peanuts should be roasted or boiled. Both of it can be done. So boiling and roasting makes it easy to digest. So once in a while, that both, any of it can be done, which is okay. Which millets are good for health? We have discussed in Aharam chapter the different qualities of millets. All of them are actually good. Some of them may be too constipative. You can stick to foxtail millet or kudo millet, like that. Otherwise, generally itself, millets are okay to include along with rice and wheat and not predominantly have millets. From which chapter of Ashtanga Hridayam discussed in the first part of the session? So Ashta Ahara Vidhi is not textually mentioned in Ashtanga Hridayam. So they are scattered references from other texts. So I will give you the exact reference of Ashta Ahara Vidhi in the next class. So that I can do in the next class. Thanks for giving the Sanskrit case of. Okay, so then is digestion of fat exothermic? So I do not know honestly, but I do not know exothermic or endothermic of digestion of different foods. So gooseberry can be consumed throughout the year, because in Shilana Dravyas, when we came about foods that are conducive, we have seen that amla can be used. So some people, like I said, may catch a cold, so you can avoid it too frequently or excessive consumption. Otherwise, you can. Then is water boiled with pati mugam? Can you tell me what pati mugam is? So then, like how to make Krishara super peya. So I think Ashtanga Hridayam has. So if you buy, I think I've given you the various sources of Ashtanga Hridayam in various languages. So in the Aharam chapter, Supa, Peya, your different forms of kanji that I mentioned, all of that are mentioned in that. You can refer that if you would like. Cooking sprouts and. So preferably we do not advise sprouting and eating too frequently. Always cook and eat the pulses. Is it possible that green gram does not agree? So like I told you, in general, pulses itself is gassy. Excess of eating of pulses will increase vayu. But the least vatavardakam is your green gram or your moong dal. So your split moong dal is what is your yellow dal. That is your moong dal that you get. So if the whole green gram, you have it watery or cook it well, if it still gives a bloating or gassy feeling, you can stick to the yellow moong dal, which is further more easy to digest and gives you less bloated feeling. So that is okay. And Pati Mugam is a bark of a tree, pink water. So I do not know I need the botanical name or the Sanskrit name at least, or I'll get back to you. That is okay. I think they use it predominantly for digestion. You will have to see what are the properties of Patimugam, and then if it aids in digestion, if it is good, then I think you can consume. It is why I think predominantly it is consumed in Kerala. So after knowing the properties of that, you can. So one second. Fruits can be consumed at night. It can be consumed. There is no restriction or something that is there against it. Then what is the frequency of vegetable salad for consumption? So like I told you, anything raw, not very frequent. Maybe these days, if people really want to consume, it's not textually mentioned, but practically in practice, we say maybe once a week, once in 10 days, you can have a small quantity of raw vegetable. Otherwise, when you're cooking and having it in your diet, anyway, vegetables are a part of regular diet. Ragi malt can also be consumed in place of oats. Not a problem, because ragi is also a millet. So onion, garlic have a lot of medicinal. why these foods are not avoided in Ayurveda. There is no reference of it not to be had. In fact, I've mentioned the properties of onion garlic in aharam. Only if there are certain medical health issues, we may ask you to avoid it. Otherwise, in Ayurveda text, there is no reference of no eating onion and garlic mentioned at all. In fact, small onion and garlic are all very good for certain kinds of diseases like hemorrhoids, piles, all of that. We in fact ask them to take it as a part of their regular diet. Lemon juice, can you consume? No, we do not recommend consuming lemon juice throughout the year. This whole concept of hot water, lemon, honey, all that is very modern, which actually I do not know. So you can include some amount of lemon or sour in the part of your diet, is what we recommend. One second. Then coming to, can we eat green gram after normal delivery? You can eat, because that is the lightest. I've told you moong dal can be had, so that is what would be recommended. Then many say bananas not to be consumed after sunset. I do not know, it is not mentioned ayurvedically anywhere. Then again, maybe because banana is extremely sweet and guru or heavy to digest, and back in those days people used to have only light food, they might have given that reason, because it's one of the sweetest fruits and it may be heavy to digest. That could be a reason. So otherwise, I think we have covered most of the questions. So yeah, if anyone wants to, has anyone raised your hand, or if there's anyone who wants to unmute, then I think we can spend about 5-10 minutes. Yeah. So I would also like to say one more thing, that is next coming Sunday will be our last session of this course. So that will be the last class session, and followed by that we will have a small valedictory or a small function for about 15-20 minutes. So I would like all of you to stay back after that, and I think in the next class the organizers may announce the date for your assessment of MCQ. It may not be immediately the immediate next Sunday. I think they will give you sufficient time to go through all the PPTs that are uploaded, and then maybe after 15 days they might give a date. So to next Sunday will be our last presentation class as such. So, and then we'll have a small concluding kind of a function, not a function, a small this thing at the end. And yeah, the assessment will be completely multiple choice only, based on all the presentations or the classes that we have done so far. And which are the light fruits you can consume at night? So I think we have seen the fruits, properties of different fruits. So I think apple, guava, papaya, pomegranate, your melons, all that you can consume. So I think some people have raised their hand. Let me. Yeah, one second. I think I've unmuted Mr. Raghu.
Hello.
Hello, yes, sir.
Yeah, this you're talking about this exam. By default, qualified for this exam, or
No, it's not an exam as such. It's just a small assessment to know how far you have understood this course.
okay.
So there is nothing major. It is just an MCQ where you'll just have to tick the right choice. That's all.
Okay. And it will be online Zoom, or how it will
It
go?
will be online. So I think they will give you the instructions next class. So I think they will either send it to you by mail, or you might have to log in through Zoom and they will send you the sheet, and you will have to just click the answer and submit the form to them.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you.
Then I've unmuted another person, Amita.
For the exam,
Yeah.
Bhagini, for the exam, do we have to learn all those names?
Of
The different.
no. So it will not be very Sanskrit oriented. The options will all be given in both English and Sanskrit, and it will 99% all the answers or choices are predominantly in English only. But Vayu, Pittam, Kafam, all of that will be mentioned. So that alone cannot be done in English. Predominantly, it will be only in English. Even your options.
Dhanyawada.
Yeah. I think a lot of. Then I think Pooja, I think I've unmuted.
Yes, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yeah, tell me, ma'am. Yeah, tell me.
Ma'am, I have two questions.
Yeah.
One is, if we consume millets regularly, will it increase our thyroid? Will we get into thyroid problems?
So that is what the modern assessment of thyroid they say. But according to the millet category in Ayurveda, they say it is kapha haram. That is, it reduces kapham. It has a scraping or lekhanam nature to the body. And because thyroid is a kapha predominant disease, it is beneficial. But then again, if you are going to consume excess of it, it will lead to increase of vayu and other kind of complication. So you can consume it maybe once a day, or in once a meal. It is okay. As far as I know, it does not increase thyroid, but I know there is a modern understanding that millets increase vayu, millets increase thyroid. But I think if you don't do excess of it, it should not bother you.
Okay, so as one meal, as probably a replacement of a rice, I can take millet.
You can definitely take, yes. So because you should remember, idli dosa are also rice based. So then that will also come. So one meal that, one meal a millet, another meal something else will do.
Will do. Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Another question, ma'am.
Yeah.
Is it possible to get the PPT, ma'am?
I think all of it has been uploaded on this Vyoma, this thing. I will anyway check with the organizers today.
Okay. Because
And
that
see,
will be as recordings only. In the recording, the PPT will come. But if it would help, if we can get the PPT separately.
I think they will be uploading the PDF forms also. But if it's not been done so far, I will check with them and ask them to do it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. So then who else? Malini, ma'am. I think I've unmuted you. Yeah.
Yeah, you said, we have to consume vegetables which were grown locally. Right? So, but, it's like cauliflower, carrot, and beans are not native to India, but, we've been consuming them for many years. So this broccoli and baby corn and Brussels sprouts are newer ones which have come in now. So the cauliflower and carrot and all not to be consumed much, only our natakais have to be consumed.
Preferably, we say more of natakai, but again, cauliflower, cabbage in excess increase vayu. But now I think those are also beginning to be cultivated here. So the really rare export varieties, occasionally we can consume, but it should not be predominantly in our diet. That is what we intend to. And natakai is any day the best for us. But if it's too less of options, we can. So carrot, beans have also been started to cultivate. They've started cultivating it here. So we can have it in our regular diet.
Just one more thing.
Ma'am, I can't hear you.
No, I said I could download all the PPTs.
Okay, even in the PDF form?
Yes, every single one I have downloaded.
Oh, okay. So I think someone who's asked me, I think someone has been able to do it. So I think they've uploaded it, and you can check in case you're unable to, maybe you're doing something wrong. So just check with us. So yeah, I have unmuted Srinivasan, sir.
Yep. My question is about reheating. Why is it to be avoided? What is the negative with it?
So all food should generally be consumed warm, but when we store something and heat it over a period of time, it becomes heavy to digest. So when you're going to refrigerate something for 2 days, one, its freshness will go, the goodness of that, what you get in it is lost. So as much as possible, we should avoid the reheating. In rare situations, it is okay. But habitually storing something and eating it is not very good, because in the fridge, we are artificially cooling it. Then again, we are heating it on the gas. So over a period, the property of that food will not last that long. So I think for occasional thing is okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. 1 second. Then I think I have unmuted Govindarajan, sir.
Yes, couple of things. I see
Tell
lesson. I downloaded up to lesson session 7 PDF and spread. The question is, the you said assessment, is it just multiple choice test or something we got to ink in? Can you enter something?
No, it'll just be MCQ. It'll just be multiple choice where you have to choose among the 4 options. There, you will not have to write anything.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Then I think, have I unmuted everybody? So, Raghu, sir, did you raise your hand again, or is it just a repetition? Okay, I think most of them are done. So, I think some more questions have come up here. So eggs are okay. I think the quality of egg as such is not mentioned, but I think the natukori or your good eggs are actually good for regular consumption. So in general, eggs are not, they are slightly heavy. It's not, definitely does not come under light food, but good eggs are okay for consumption. And anyone else? So practice session of questions for assessing. So there won't be any practice session as such, but it's not a very difficult kind of an assessment like you're thinking. It's not like an exam. Generally, if you've gone through the PPTs or listened in the class, I think if you retain some information itself, you can just click it. It's a very basic MCQ only. It's not very assessment related. Is it okay to consume bundi raita? Again, I told you, dadi, according to that particular season, once in a while in the afternoons, you can consume. So not organically grown. So these days, organic, non-organic is very questionable. So getting vegetables itself is a very difficult thing right now. So consuming what we get is okay. Definitely organic, they say, has a lesser shelf life and beneficial without any pesticide, or that is the difference. But you can just consume vegetables as such. So again, the affordability of organic, non-organic is different. So someone's asked to unmute again. I think I've unmuted Raghu, sir. Or I think it's a repetition. Okay. So I think if we have covered everything, we can finish the session. So I think there'll be about 50 questions in the assessment, which will just be tick the right choice. So yeah, I think so next class we can see it will be the last session, followed by a small valedictory kind of finishing. And I think that class, the organizers will announce how the MCQ will be and how it will be given to you and all of it, and the date will be given in the next class. It will definitely not be immediate Sunday. They might give you 2 weeks time and give you a date later. So yeah, I think we have finished the session with all the doubts. So we can finish the class for today. And any other doubts unanswered, you can always drop in a mail. Sahana. Okay, someone else raised their hand. I think I've unmuted someone. So Sahana. Are you able to speak? I think. Okay, I think nobody is speaking up. So any other doubts that you want to ask, you can just drop it in our mailbox and we can finish the session. So thank you all for joining in, and let us meet next Sunday. So